Celtics' recent run since the All-Star break, I guess. It's been pretty good.
Yeah, they've been okay.
Are you buying it?
All right, so this is a loaded question.
Yes.
I am buying that the Celtics are better. They're better with Marcus Smart. Kyrie Irving's been brilliant, and I think he's really starting to fit into what the Celtics are trying to do. He's what Stevens is doing with him is really smart because he is using him in the way that he's best as a pick and roll, option, as a handoff option, which kind of works as a pick and roll. But he's also using him off ball in ways that Cleveland didn't use him last year. He's a lot more of a spot up threat. He's a lot more of like a cutter. He's he can obviously attack closeouts. Obviously he can do that, but they're actually utilizing that option now, which is pretty interesting to see. So I think that the way they're using Kyrie is real. I think the defense being back is real. Smart, makes a huge difference. That's real. That being said, the last 4 teams they've played have all been, 3 of them were bad. Charlotte's been playing really well, but they were on the 5th game in 7 nights, second night of a back-to-back on the road. You could call that a schedule loss, and they got, obliterated. Like, you could see the Celtics went on a bit of a run. Charlotte tried to maybe get back into it. End of the first half, they were, down by 8 or something like that. But you could just tell the Hornets had no push. There was no push in that second half when the Celtics went on their run. So I am buying that the Celtics are better. I think that it's pretty clear that they are going to be a tough team in the Eastern Conference. But I don't know how much you can, look at these 4 games and then extrapolate Saturday night against Houston, they're going to win that game for sure. I don't think you can necessarily say that they're back to contender status just because they won these 4 games.
We sat on Facebook Live after they lost to the Cavs on Paul Pierce Day and said
What a brutal game.
It's a really bad basketball game. And talked about how many questions we had about the team. It sounds like you don't believe this was enough time to fully address some of those concerns. Or do you think that some of those still exist beyond that game? Was that maybe we were just like, wow, that was really bad? Was it a bit of an overreaction? Or
right.
do you still think there are some legitimate concerns about this team as they stand right now?
There are definitely still legitimate concerns. I will say, I think that anybody who's downplaying Marcus Smart's impact on this team is crazy. The impact that he is having on this team is real. It is making a big difference. He is just that X factor that they need. And X factor is such an overused term, but it is so applicable to Marcus Smart, who comes in offensively. He can help run the show in the second unit, and he can throw lobs. And he's actually been shooting efficiently because he hasn't been taking as many shots. I think he took 5 shots in 2 of the last 3 games here. So that's a big plus for the Celtics. But just defensively, he puts an end to so many possessions. Just by getting steals, grabbing rebounds,
winning plays.
Man, he just makes them, man. It's crazy to see, and especially it's crazy to say winning plays when they've been winning now that he's back in the game. So I do think that's real. Marcus Smart's impact on this team is very real, and it's definitely probably making him some money this summer. But but I think that a lot of the question marks still remain. The second unit has been great. Will that continue? I don't know. They're playing Shemi Ojeleye heavy minutes, and Shemi's a great defender, but he doesn't have the confidence to take an open corner 3.
I saw a stat on Twitter. I don't know, maybe you tweeted it. One of the Celtics writers tweeted it that he hasn't taken a shot in a significant amount of minutes.
That sounds.
It was
plausible.
I remember seeing 0 shots and I was like, really? What? Really?
Yeah. So he didn't end up taking a shot in the first half in last night's game. Period. He did take a couple of, missed a couple of layups, and then also hit a mid-range jumper yesterday as well. So he, that was late in the game. He clearly does not want to shoot. That is very obvious. If he gets an open 3, he would much rather pass it off. He just doesn't have any confidence right now in his shot. But Stevens keeps using him because he's a useful defender, and that's kind of where the trade-off comes in that second unit for the Celtics. They just don't have that guy who can just, go get a bucket, really. And Monroe did a little bit yesterday against Willy Hernan-Gomez. He played really well, but I think that second unit is the big question mark going forward. If it continues to play well, the Celtics are back to contender status, and I think that's very clear. If it goes back to the way it was, less so.
You mentioned how Stevens wants to play Ojeleye, thinks he's going to be a useful player. I think he's said in recent days his comments would reflect that he wants Greg Monroe to be a useful player for that second team. And there were definitely a couple games at the beginning of his Celtics tenure where that was he wasn't very useful.
Yeah.
But yesterday seemed to be a step in the right direction. So I wanted to get your temperature on the Greg Monroe addition to the Celtics and how you see this playing out over the next 20 games or so. Can he kind of solidify a spot in a playoff rotation?
Yeah, so I think for Monroe, everything is going to come down to matchups, and that might be really frustrating for him because I think that there could be matchups in the playoffs where it makes no sense to play him, and he might just not play play very much, which would be frustrating for a guy who picked the Celtics, off the buyout market, especially when there was an opportunity like New Orleans where he would have gotten significant minutes. I mean, Emeka Okafor is playing for that team right now. But, we saw last night against Hernan Gomez, there are matchups where Greg Monroe can just dominate. 3 straight possessions yesterday, the Celtics just ran clear-out plays for him, straight clear-outs, and he just got buckets against Hernan Gomez. Like, there was just nothing the guy could do. So if there's a smaller big man, if there's a skinnier big man, somebody who's not as strong on him, he can go right through that guy's chest. And that's a valuable skill. That's not like a go-to skill that you use for like the entire game. That's what Stevens talked about post-game. He said, it's an isolation play, so you don't want to go to it too heavy because then people start standing around. But it is something where 3 straight, 4 straight possessions, you go to that, you let him, get some offense. The other team has to reshuffle everything, and in that reshuffling, that's when things can start to go really well for you. So I do think that there are ways to use him. It's just going to really depend on the matchup.
It's kind of like if you have, to steal a baseball analogy, like a specialty reliever, like a lefty reliever who you can take out of the bullpen. And I think that can play in a playoff game where you might, that second unit has run real hot and cold. Yeah. You might need him. Even if the matchup isn't perfect, or maybe it is perfect and you want to try it, where you just send him in and say, we need a couple buckets. Yeah. That's it. And those kind of plays can change the momentum of a playoff game. One game could change the momentum of a series, so on and so forth. So I still think Greg Monroe can be useful. Yeah. And I think there is a spot for him here. But I don't know that he's going to be a huge difference maker.
Yeah, I think it's more a question of how you see, how you define a rotation player. Because if the rotation player is somebody who plays every single game, then probably not. But if the rotation player is somebody who could play every single game in a playoff series based on the matchup, then yeah, I could see him being a rotation player. Kind of tough to tell. I think he will. I think the Celtics are going to continue to try to use him. A couple of lineups they played yesterday were really good defensively with him in the game, and that's encouraging because obviously he's not a good defender. But yeah, that'll be interesting to watch going forward.